you're serving a really interesting, market in the healthcare industry, right? And what would you say is kind of the current digital landscape within these large healthcare and the industry that is healthcare? What is the current digital landscape looking like, and what are some of the things you're noticing there?
One of the things that also attracted me to ZS was I always found the healthcare industry in that market really interesting. There's a lot of players, the government is involved, private sector, big firms like your Googles and Amazon, small niche players. And we really are sort of a bit of a niche player when we started 40 years ago. And of course, we've sort of grown up a little bit. But I always thought it was really interesting. I mean, there's some real challenges with healthcare and some headwinds. Most of our client and customer base still today is the pharmaceutical sector, which are really the manufacturers of the medicines and the drugs and a critical part of the healthcare ecosystem. But in addition to the manufacturers, i.e., the pharmaceutical firms, we've got the health plans, right? The Optums of the world, the Blue Cross Blue Shields, the insurers, right? And then we've got the health provider networks, which back in the day were sort of individual doctors managing their own practice. Now there are doctor networks and hospital networks and all of that. So it's much more complicated. And so, to answer your question, it's a very difficult landscape. As a marketer, I always think about sort of the client experience, right? So if you think about sort of the patient or the consumer experience with healthcare, we've all had our own experiences in our doctor's offices or going to a specialist and they're not talking to each other because the data can't be shared. You walk in, maybe you're traveling and you walk into a hospital or a clinic in a town where you've never been before and you're like a net new person to everyone, right? And why is that? Partly that is because there are certain sort of regulatory issues about how data can be shared, and there's not perhaps a platform yet where pharma, health plans, and providers are all sort of working together for the benefit of the consumer slash patient. We're getting there, but there's definitely some challenges. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, in terms of how I know digital transformation is sort of a tired term, right? But pharma and healthcare really are ripe for digital transformation.
I agree. I mean, I interviewed an executive from Cognizant a few months back as well, and they were supporting a lot of the healthcare industry. It's interesting to see still this, healthcare being notorious for just slow to adopt technology. In that vein, I mean, how is ZS helping healthcare customers not just kind of step into a digital world, but lead it?
Lots of examples. I'll sort of pick one that maybe will bring it to life. And I know everyone, including myself, is not an expert on healthcare. I probably know enough to be dangerous at this point, right? But one of the things that we've been doing most recently, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we started really building this practice in earnest, was that traditionally ZS is focused on the commercial side of pharma. And what does that mean? That means, how are drugs taken to market? How do you work with the health providers and the provider networks to get them to understand what the medicine or medication is, when to apply it, how to measure it, all of that kind of stuff. So there's all about pipeline and launch strategy. What is the drug pipeline? How do you monetize that, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other significant side of pharma is the R&D side of pharma. Keep in mind, it takes billions of dollars in investment to bring a drug successfully to market, right? From drug discovery to clinical trials, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the things that we're doing from a digital perspective is we're helping our clients, our pharmaceutical manufacturing clients, harness the power of data that might come from a lot of different sources. And so some of that data could be from devices, could be people's Fitbits, or could be other types of smartwatches. It could be medical devices that have been implanted in them, right? Whether it's monitoring devices or whatnot from a medical device company. It could be something that their doctor prescribed for them in terms of how they're monitoring their medication and whatnot. And so we're trying to take all of these data points in terms of how the patient slash consumer is behaving and what they're doing, and thinking about, hey, can we leverage that data to better optimize a clinical trial? Like, how are we bringing in the right people into clinical trials? Maybe not just from a perspective of, oh, they seem to meet all the attributes, right? But it's also, are we being smart about health equity? Are we serving the general population? How do you even reach certain populations which are harder to reach than others, right? So, because at the end of the day, if you've got a diverse population in your clinical trial, ultimately we think you'll have a more successful trial and you'll be more efficient in terms of bringing medicines to market that'll help consumer health, the general consumer health, not just pockets of, right? Not just pockets of maybe this area or this zip code, but more general zip codes.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more great marketing interviews with today's top industry leaders. And thank you to our partners at Salesforce. Salesforce brings marketing and engagement together. Head over to salesforce.com/marketing.